Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
My previous manager was this laid-back guy who trusted us to do our jobs and treated everyone fairly. Then corporate decided we needed fresh leadership and brought in this woman I'll call Karen. From day one, she acted like she was running some Fortune 500 company instead of a neighborhood grocery store. There was this older guy who worked with us. Let's just call him the old man. He'd been there for years, way longer than anyone else. Always had this warm smile and knew every regular customer by name. The thing is, he used a wheelchair to get around. Some kind of accident years back, I heard, but he never talked about it much. Didn't matter to any of us. The guy could stock shelves faster than people half his age, and somehow always knew exactly where everything belonged. Karen had been making changes since she arrived, rearranging displays that worked fine, implementing new policies that made no sense, and generally making everyone miserable. But what happened next still makes my blood boil when I think about it. I was working the cereal aisle when I heard voices getting heated a few rows over. Karen's voice carried, so I could make out most of what she was saying. I grabbed a few boxes and slowly made my way closer, pretending to restock while I listened. Karen told the old man that they needed to discuss his future at the store. When he asked if there was a problem with his work and mentioned his productivity numbers, she cut him off. She said it wasn't about productivity but about image. She explained that when customers walked in and saw someone like him working there, it sent the wrong message. The old man asked what she meant by someone like him. Karen told him he knew what she meant, the wheelchair thing. She said it made people uncomfortable, and that customers came to shop not to feel guilty about disabled people. I nearly dropped the cereal boxes. The old man told her he'd been working there for 8 years and no customer had ever complained about him. Karen replied that was before she was in charge, and she had standards to maintain. She said they needed employees who projected strength and capability. When the old man insisted he was capable and did his job better than others, Karen interrupted him. She told him she was trying to be nice about it, but the bottom line was that having disabled employees hurt their brand. She called it basic business sense. That's when I decided to interrupt. I walked over and asked if they needed any help. The old man looked relieved to see me. Karen just gave me this annoyed look like I was interrupting something important. The old man said he actually did need help and asked if I could reach something on the top shelf for him. I told him of course I could help. I made sure to take my time hoping Karen would leave. She did, saying something about having real work to do. When she was gone, the old man and I looked at each other. He asked if I believed what had just happened. I told him I was sorry he had to deal with that and that it was completely out of line. He said that in 8 years of working there, no one had ever talked to him like that. I suggested we should report her to corporate. He said maybe, and that he wanted to think about it. Over the next few days, Karen kept making her improvements. She moved products to different aisles without telling anyone, so customers couldn't find anything. She cut hours for part-time workers and started timing our bathroom breaks. The whole store was in chaos, but whenever anyone complained, she'd just say we weren't adapting well to change. Then she made her biggest mistake. She started hassling the old man more openly. She'd assign him to different sections every day, hoping he'd struggle with the wheelchair. She'd schedule him for shifts when deliveries came in, thinking the physical demands would force him to quit. But the guy just kept doing excellent work, helping customers, and staying positive. Finally, Karen called an all-staff meeting. We gathered in the break room wondering what new policy she'd dreamed up this time. She walked in with this smug expression like she was about to announce something big. Karen announced that she'd been evaluating everyone's performance and had decided to make some personnel changes. She looked directly at the old man when she said this. She continued, explaining that some people just weren't meeting the standards the store required. She said she'd be letting some employees go to make room for better candidates. The old man raised his hand and said that before she continued, he thought there was something she should know about him. Karen told him this wasn't a discussion and that she'd made her decision. He said he was sure she had, but thought she might want to reconsider once she understood who she was talking to. Karen asked what that was supposed to mean. The old man explained that he wasn't just an employee there, he was one of the owners. The room went completely silent. You could hear a pin drop. Karen's face went from smug to confused into terrified in about 3 seconds. Karen said that was impossible and insisted he was just a stock clerk. The old man confirmed he'd been a stock clerk, but explained he'd also been a co-owner of the store for the past 12 years. He told her that his partner and he had bought it when the previous owners retired. I asked if he was seriously telling the truth. He confirmed he was serious and explained he never mentioned it because he liked working alongside everyone else. He said it kept him connected to how things really ran. Karen was turning red now. She accused him of lying and said owners don't work on the floor. The old man replied that this owner did, and this owner had just heard his manager tell him that disabled people were bad for business and hurt the brand. The whole room was staring at Karen now. Some people were trying not to laugh. Others looked shocked. The old man told Karen that what really hurt the business was managers who treated employees like garbage and drove away loyal customers with their terrible decisions. Karen said that she didn't know. He said no, she didn't know. He explained that she'd assumed that because he used a wheelchair, he couldn't possibly be anything more than what she saw on the surface. He wheeled himself to the front of the room and announced that right now she was no longer the manager of the store. He told her security would escort her out and she'd receive her final paycheck by mail. Karen protested that he couldn't do this to her. He replied that actually he could, and he was. 2 security guards appeared in the doorway. Apparently, the old man had called them before the meeting. Karen yelled that this was discrimination and threatened to sue. The old man told her to feel free to try, saying he was sure a judge would be very interested to hear about her views on employing disabled people. When they escorted Karen out, she kept yelling about how unfair it was. The rest of us just sat there in stunned silence until she was gone. Then someone started clapping. Soon the whole room was applauding and cheering. The old man just smiled and shook his head. I asked him how long he'd known he was going to fire her. He said since the first day she told him he was bad for the store's image and that he just wanted to see how far she'd take it. Another co-worker asked what would happen now. The old man said now we go back to running the store the right way, the way that worked for everyone. That's exactly what happened. The old man took over when manager while they looked for a replacement. He undid all of Karen's changes, restored everyone's hours, and brought back the friendly atmosphere we'd lost. Customer complaints disappeared overnight. Turns out, when you're known for discriminating against disabled people, it's pretty hard to find work in retail management. My husband and I have been married for 8 years. We have 2 kids. Our daughter just turned 6 and is in 1st grade, and our 3-year-old son who has autism. He is nonverbal and has some developmental delays, which means he needs constant supervision. Anyone who knows us understands that our son requires extra attention and care. 3 months ago, my husband's sister showed up at our door with tears in her eyes and a suitcase in her hand. She'd just lost her job and couldn't make rent on her apartment. She begged us to let her stay until she got back on her feet. My husband felt terrible seeing his sister like that, and honestly, so did I. We've always tried to help family when they need it. She pleaded with us, saying she had nowhere else to go and just needed a few weeks to find another job and save up for a deposit. I told her of course she could stay because family helps family. She seemed so grateful and even offered to help around the house and babysit the kids to earn her keep. It seemed perfect. She'd have a place to stay rent-free and we'd get some help with childcare. My husband and I both work full-time, so having someone we trusted to watch the kids would be a huge relief. For the first couple months, everything seemed fine. She'd pick up our daughter from school sometimes and play with our son while we were at work. She said she enjoyed spending time with them and the kids seemed to like her. I thought maybe this arrangement would work out well for everyone. Then came the day that changed everything. I was at my desk at work focused on a project deadline when my phone rang. The caller ID showed the local police department. My heart immediately started pounding. The officer on the other end told me they had my 3-year-old son at the station. He explained that my boy had been found wandering alone about 6 blocks from our address. The words hit me like a truck. My son, my nonverbal autistic son, was found wandering the streets alone. I could barely form words. I asked how this could happen when someone was supposed to be watching him. The officer explained that a neighbor called it in when they saw him walking down the sidewalk by himself. He seemed confused and scared. They needed me to come pick him up, and they'd need to speak with whoever was supposed to be supervising him. I left work immediately, my hands shaking when I drove to the police station. When I got there, I found my son sitting with a female officer, looking overwhelmed and frightened. My heart broke seeing him like that. The officer explained that a concerned neighbor had spotted him walking alone and called 911 immediately. When I got home with my son, my sister-in-law was pacing around the living room. She looked relieved when she saw us. She said she was so worried and thanked God we were both okay. I demanded to know how this happened and asked how my son ended up 6 blocks away when she was supposed to be watching him. She explained that she had only looked away for a minute while doing laundry. When she came back to check on him, he wasn't in the living room anymore. She claimed she had searched everywhere for him. I asked her how long she was searching before she called the police. She admitted she thought she could find him herself and didn't want to panic anyone unnecessarily. She had looked for about an hour before she realized she needed help. An hour? She spent an entire hour searching before involving authorities, and she never once called me or my husband. I asked her if she really let an autistic 3-year-old wander around for an hour before getting help, and why she didn't think to call us. She said she didn't want to worry us at work over nothing and thought she'd find him quickly. I told her this wasn't nothing and that he could have been hit by a car, taken by someone, or gotten seriously hurt. She brushed off my concerns, saying he was fine now since the police brought him back safe and sound. Her casual attitude about the whole situation made my blood boil. She seemed more concerned about not getting in trouble than about my son's safety. I explained that he wasn't fine, he was traumatized. I asked what would have happened if that neighbor hadn't seen him or if someone with bad intentions had found him first. She dismissed my concerns again, saying I was overreacting and that kids wander off sometimes. She claimed it happens to everyone. That night, after we put the kids to bed, I told my husband that his sister needed to leave. I couldn't trust her with our children anymore, especially our son, who needs constant supervision. My husband questioned whether I really wanted to kick her out, saying it was just an accident and that she felt terrible about it. I argued that this wasn't about making a mistake. She was supposed to be watching him, and she waited an hour to get help. He said she panicked, and that people make mistakes when they're scared. I explained that this wasn't about making a mistake, but about our son's safety. I couldn't have someone watching our kids who thinks it's okay to search for a missing autistic child for an hour before calling for help. He protested that she had nowhere to go and we couldn't just throw her out on the street. We argued about it for hours. The next morning I told his sister she needed to find somewhere else to stay. She asked if I was really going to kick her out over this, claiming she had said she was sorry. I told her that sorry didn't undo what happened and that my son could have been seriously hurt or worse. She said fine, but warned me that I'd regret this when my husband realized what a heartless person he married. She packed her things and left that same day, but not without making several nasty comments about how ungrateful and cold I was. My husband was upset with me for days, saying I was too harsh and that family should stick together. About a week later, my phone rang while I was at work. It was my daughter's school. The secretary told me they had a situation they needed to discuss with me. When I asked what kind of situation, she explained that my sister-in-law had come to pick up my daughter but wasn't on the authorized pickup list. She said my sister-in-law claimed I had asked her to come, but they needed to verify this with me directly. I hadn't spoken to my sister-in-law since she moved out, and I certainly hadn't asked her to pick up my daughter. I told them I absolutely had not asked her to pick up my daughter and requested that they not release her to anyone who wasn't on the authorized list. The secretary assured me they would keep my daughter there until my husband or I could come get her. I raced to the school furious and terrified. When I got there, I found my sister-in-law in the office with my confused daughter. She told me she was just trying to help by picking up my daughter so I wouldn't have to leave work. I asked her what she meant by help, pointing out that nobody had asked for her help, and she had no right to try to take my daughter from school. She protested that she was my daughter's aunt and was just being nice. I reminded her that she wasn't authorized to pick her up, and after what happened with my son, she should know better than to make decisions about my children without asking. The school principal, who had been listening to our exchange, stepped in and explained that they'd take unauthorized pickup attempts very seriously. He said they were going to need to file a report about this incident. My sister-in-law asked if they were really going to file a report, insisting she was family. The principal explained that being family doesn't override their safety protocols and that parents have to specifically authorize who can pick up their children. I took my daughter home and immediately called my husband to tell him what happened. Even he had to admit that his sister had crossed the line this time. He said he couldn't believe she tried to pick up our daughter without asking us first. I told him this proved she hadn't learned anything from what happened with our son and that she still thought she could make decisions about our kids without consulting us. That evening, my sister-in-law started calling and texting both of us non-stop. Her messages accused me of seriously letting them file a report on her when she was just trying to help. She claimed our kids loved her and that we were keeping them from their aunt over nothing. She said she couldn't believe how ungrateful we both were after everything she did for us. The messages kept coming for days. She alternated between playing the victim and trying to make us feel guilty. She even had the nerve to tell other family members that we'd kicked her out over a minor misunderstanding and tried to turn them against us. A few weeks later, I was talking to my neighbor, the same one who had called the police when she found my son walking alone. She said she was so glad my little boy was okay, and that it was scary seeing him out there by himself. I thanked her for calling the police, saying I didn't know what would have happened if she hadn't seen him. Then she asked me something that changed everything. She wondered if my sister-in-law was really looking for him for an hour because she had seen her car in our driveway the whole time. She said my sister-in-law didn't come outside until after the police had already found him. This revelation hit me like a lightning bolt. She hadn't been searching for my son at all. She had been hiding in the house, probably hoping he'd come back on his own so she wouldn't have to explain what happened. When I confronted her about this over the phone, she finally showed her true colors. I told her that my neighbor said she never left the house to look for him and that she had lied to me about searching for an hour. She asked what the big deal was, claiming she looked around the house and yard and that counted as searching. I asked her how looking around the house counted as searching when a 3-year-old with autism was missing, and she sat in the house hoping he'd come home. She said she knew if she called me right away, I'd freak out and blame her. She thought he'd come back and nobody would have to know. I asked her if she thought nobody would have to know that she lost my son. She got defensive, insisting she didn't lose him because he got out on his own. Then she said something unforgivable. Maybe if I taught him better, this wouldn't have happened. That was the last straw. Blaming my autistic 3-year-old son for her negligence was unforgivable. I told her to never contact us again and that if she tried to come near my children or my family, I'd call the police. She said fine and called us both horrible people, claiming our kids would grow up knowing their parents chose strangers over family. I hung up and blocked her number. My husband, who had heard the whole conversation on speakerphone, finally understood why I've been so adamant about not trusting her with our children. He apologized for not believing me before and admitted I was right to protect our kids. It's been 2 months since all of this happened, and I still get angry thinking about it. My son could have been seriously hurt or worse because she was too selfish and irresponsible to do her job. And then she had the audacity to try to take my daughter from school without permission after nothing had happened. Some family members still think I was too harsh, but I don't care. My children's safety comes before anyone's feelings, including family. When I was 14, our school organized this amazing 6th grade wilderness camp. Everyone in my grade was going, and I was so excited. The brochure made it sound incredible. Kayaking, mountain biking, rock climbing, archery, you name it. But when I got there, I discovered the cruel reality that my parents had somehow failed to mention. Every single fun activity cost extra money. Want to rent a kayak? $5. Mountain bike for the afternoon? $8. Rock climbing gear? $10. Archery lesson? Another $5. I had exactly $0 in my pocket. While all my classmates were having the time of their lives, I spent 3 days sitting by the lake watching them splash around in kayaks I couldn't afford to rent. I watched them disappear into the forest on mountain bikes while I stayed back at the cabin. During the big rock climbing day, I was the only kid who didn't participate. The counselors felt bad for me and tried to include me in some free activities, but honestly, it was humiliating. When I came home, my parents asked how camp was. I told them it was fine, I guess. My mom seemed confused and said the brochure made it sound amazing, asking what I did there. I explained that I didn't really do anything because everything cost money, and I didn't have any. My dad just shrugged and said that was a good lesson about planning ahead and saving up. That stung, but I didn't say anything. Instead, I made myself a promise. My sister was going to the same camp in 2 years when she reached 6th grade, and I wasn't going to let her go through what I went through. For the next year and a half, I worked my butt off. I did extra chores. I babysat neighbor kids. I even started a small business selling friendship bracelets to kids at school. Every penny I made went into a shoebox under my bed. By the time my sister's camp was approaching, I had saved up $85. I was so proud of myself. The night before she left for camp, I knocked on her bedroom door and told her I had something for her. When she asked what it was, I handed her the envelope with all my saved money. I explained that this was for camp so she could actually do the fun stuff since I knew everything cost money there. She looked genuinely surprised and maybe even touched. She said wow and thanked me, calling it really nice of me. I told her to just have fun and do all the things I couldn't do. The 3 days she was gone felt like forever. I kept imagining her having the best time ever, finally getting to experience what that camp was supposed to be like. When she got back, I practically ambushed her at the front door. I eagerly asked how it was and what she did, wondering if she tried kayaking or rock climbing. She just shrugged and said it was okay. When I pressed her about what she did with the money, she said nothing really because everything still cost money. I stared at her, confused. I reminded her that I gave her $85, which was enough for like 10 different activities. That's when she said something that I will never forget as long as I live. She told me that once you give someone money, you don't get to control what they do with it anymore. I asked what she meant and what she spent it on. She casually explained that she bought stuff at the camp store, snacks and souvenirs and things. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. I had worked for a year and a half, saving every penny, specifically so she could experience the camp activities I'd missed, and she spent it on junk food and overpriced t-shirts. I asked if she was serious right now, explaining that I saved that money for a year so she could do the activities. She just rolled her eyes and said, I should have been more specific then. She lectured me that once money is given, the person receiving it can do whatever they want with it, and that you don't get to put strings on gifts. That was the last time I ever gave my sister money for anything. But I also discovered something interesting. I really enjoyed telling this story. It perfectly illustrated the difference between the spirit of a gift and the letter of the law. So whenever the topic of family dynamics or sibling relationships came up, I would share this story. And every time I told it, my sister would get visibly annoyed. This went on for about 6 months. Family dinners, friend gatherings, school presentations about learning experiences. Anytime it was remotely relevant, I'd launch into my camp money story. I wasn't being malicious about it, but I wasn't exactly being subtle either. Then one day my sister approached me with her phone in hand. She told me she was sending me money right now, $100, and asked if I would please stop telling that stupid story about camp. I watched the Venmo notification pop up on my phone. I thanked her for the money, and she asked if I would stop telling the story. I told her I didn't agree to anything and was just accepting her generous gift. She looked frustrated but didn't push it further. I think she assumed that taking her money meant I'd accepted some kind of unspoken agreement. 2 weeks later, we were at my cousin's birthday party. Someone mentioned summer camps, and I saw my opportunity. I said it reminded me of this lesson I learned about gift giving and launched into the story with even more enthusiasm than usual, making sure to include all the juicy details about working for a year to save money and how my sister spent it on snacks instead. I even made eye contact with her during the best parts. When I finished, my sister was fuming. She said she couldn't believe I was still telling the story. It reminded me that she paid me to stop. I said this was awkward, and when she asked what I meant, I explained that using her own logic from camp, once money is given, the person receiving it can do whatever they want with it. I reminded her that you don't get to put strings on gifts, just like she told me. The room went completely silent. My cousin started giggling. My aunt tried to hide her smile behind her coffee cup. My sister protested that it wasn't the same thing. I asked how it wasn't the same thing, explaining that she gave me money with no specific agreement about what I'd do in return. I told her that using her own rules, once money changes hands, her obligation is complete and I can do whatever I want. And what I wanted to do was keep telling the story. She walked off to another room, but I could hear my relatives chuckling behind me. Karen hasn't offered me any money to stop telling stories since then. And honestly, the story just keeps getting better every time I tell it. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.